Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Movies Down Memory Lane. I need a sound effect there or something
You know,
like,
like a little
ah,
something, a
yeah,
chime or something, or like a
yeah,
waviness.
yeah. But I'm Stephen Billings. Of course, I have always with me my two buddies, Andrew Cabral and Dan Skip Allen. And this is the show where we take a trip down memory lane, our movie memory lanes, and each of us, it's a new guy every episode. We pull a movie out of our past that really connects with us, that really means something to us. And that person then will explain to everybody, especially us, the two others, why they really love that movie so much. We have a meter. It's called the Philometer, and we'll bring it up large here. It tells our meter of where we feel. You got the person that brings the movie in has to be obsessed with the movie. But then, we'll find out where the other two are at. There's good stuff. I respect it, and not for me. So yeah, that's the show. Just simple as that. Just a guy. We just like to talk about movies we love here. So that's this show is a chance to do that. And this time around, it's Andrew's pick,
It
and
is
he
indeed.
chose 2001's A Knight's Tale.
I did
So
indeed. 2001. So everybody get back in your time machines to 24 years ago. A different time, a different place. Coincidentally, this movie came out pre 9/11. Came out in May of 2021. I was a ripe, uh, almost 14 years old. So put yourself in a teenage mindset, if you will. Um, and yeah, this was a movie that I watched so many times. My first kind of interaction with it actually wasn't in the theater. It would have been at home, probably renting it on DVD. Because I think by that point it was that transitional period between DVDs and VHS tapes, standard definition to I guess still standard definition, but digital. You know what I mean? Analog to digital, and I think it was rented on DVD, if not VHS at the time, because I couldn't remember when I had gotten my first DVD player. If it was either Christmas of 2000 or 2001. Can't remember which one. Either way, I saw it, past the theater, and so it would have been about 3 months or so afterwards, so the fall time, and 14 years old. Once again, you're in that teenage young kid mindset. You're not really looking at movies to assess quality. You're kind of looking at movies for like entertainment and things like that. And this movie was just absurdly entertaining to me at the time. Even to this day, rewatching it last night was like taking a trip back to that time. And the movie, for those of you who have not seen it, it's a medieval comedy romance, a little action in there. It's essentially a sports movie set during medieval times. It's like if you go to medieval times or like a Renaissance fair, it feels like it has that level of energy and that level of fun to it, but
yeah,
like on the big screen or on the screen. And the movie stars at the time a burgeoning star in Heath Ledger, who I had just probably seen in the movie The Patriot, which had come out, I think, a year before, the Mel Gibson movie, where he played one of Mel Gibson's, several sons or children in that film. And this was right around the time that Heath Ledger was making the transition from Australia to the US. He did like 10 Things I Hate About You. He did The Patriot. He did this movie. But for me, it was at that time in my life where I was starting to recognize actors. Like, oh, I remember this person from this. I remember this person from that. Like, like like Heath Ledger, and of course I recognized like Mel Gibson because even at that time I think I'd just seen Braveheart as well. So all of these movies I was seeing like at the same time, so these names and these faces were starting to look familiar. And Heath Ledger, this is I have to go and look. It's got to be one of his like early breakout roles where he's leading a movie and he is just the main driver of this movie. Like I said, The Patriot is something that is a Mel Gibson movie. It's very much with older, more veteran actors. 10 Things I Hate About You is a teen angst comedy that's also mostly an ensemble film, based off of the Shakespeare play. But he had literally his previous movie was The Patriot. I'm just looking at his IMDb right now. So this is part of the formative years of Heath Ledger. And I was immediately captivated by him just because he's got that on screen presence, that charm, that wit, that acting ability. Something innate about Heath Ledger was something I had never seen at the time, because I was so young and not really looking for it, but he just had it. He's got that it factor that grabs you. And this movie, I watched it so many times because then, of course, after it was on VHS, after it was on DVD, it would play on cable constantly,
Yeah.
especially as Heath Ledger got more and more, much more of a bigger star throughout the 2000s. They would play this all the time. So I would watch it so much because it's such an easy viewing film, and there's something comforting about a movie that I find to be so easy to watch, something that's so relatable as well. This movie
Okay.
is relatable.
Well, you're gonna leave us some room to ask you questions. You're just gonna spill your heart out all in the beginning.
I wanted to gush first, and then have you guys get on
Well,
me.
we're not gonna. I don't know if we got
movie.
anything left to ask about.
Yeah.
You just literally tells your whole life story.
Well, yeah, I love the rags to riches story, the classic, underdog sports story, the classic underdog life story. Going from nothing to something.
I haven't asked you anything yet, and you're still telling us.
Yeah,
everything you like
but
about
I want to then have. Now I want to hand it off to you guys.
Oh, thanks. Let me see if I can think of a question to ask now that you've said everything that you like about this movie.
Yeah.
Heath Ledger is obviously the star of this movie. Now I'll say, I guess if we're trying, because Dan brought this up last time, typically we wait till we're going to give our full feelometer. Let's try doing it the other way. Where I am with this movie is that I think this is good stuff. Like, I like this movie a lot. I'm somewhere between I respect it and good stuff. Because I like it, but to be honest, it's not one that I feel the need to go back to a lot. And this is why. Because honestly, the rest of the cast around Heath Ledger is what I like about the movie more than I like Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
In the movie. I think that if it wasn't for Paul Bettany and Alan Tudyk, them character actors, all them around him, I don't think it would have been nearly as funny as it was. Now, and then the other thing about it is this, as you said, it is a comedy as well. It's also a movie that's kind of like it's a satire. It's a movie that has music from modern day playing in a medieval setting. So it's kind of a satire movie, but it really doesn't give an explanation of why this movie it's okay for this movie to have modern music. I don't know. It's not like Maria Antoinette where they really kind of make it work. It just feels like that they were like, it would be really cool if we played "We Will Rock You" in this movie. Maybe you can explain it to me why this.
Yeah,
movie...
I understand exactly what you're saying. What also comes to mind is another movie that ironically I defend and really like a lot is The Great Gatsby movie, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, I don't like that movie either.
Where they use modern music as the soundtrack, as they'll be driving along a highway, they'll have a modern rap song playing or something. For me, it just felt incredibly atmospheric to utilize it, especially because it utilized a sports setting. They're at a stadium and the people are chanting "We Will Rock You" with the stomping of the feet. Something you see in sports stadiums now. It just made the film. It made the film take itself less seriously, which I felt worked in its favor because it gives you that license to then do other things. It gives you the license to, at one point in the movie, the armorer puts the Nike sign on the armor that she makes. It's like, oh, that's kind of funny because nowadays modern day armor would be probably made by a Nike or an Adidas or a Puma or Under Armour or whatever.
Well, let's let Dan speak some. Like I said, I'm between respect it and good stuff. Where does Dan stand on this movie? What do you?
Yeah, I'm with respect it. Look, I saw this movie so long ago. I didn't remember a whole lot about it besides Heath Ledger and Paul Bettany and stuff like that. So I had to rewatch this movie. And Steven, you stole my thunder with the soundtrack. The soundtrack is obvious.
It's cool. I like the songs.
The soundtrack, "We Will Rock You" by Queen.
There's a couple other songs in there too.
"Low Rider" by War.
Yeah.
What do we got? Taking Care of Business by Bachman Turner Overdrive. The Boys Are Back by Thin
The Boys Are Back.
Lizzy.
I remember it when they're going into at the end, when they're going into the big city, town, whatever you want to call it, like to have the finals of the sports, thing, yeah, they play Boys Are Back in Town. Yeah.
And then the trailer, it's We Will Rock You. Another She Shook Me All Night Long.
Yeah.
She Shook Me All Night Long by ACT. The soundtrack really resonated with me, but I just want to go back to that moment where, yeah, We Will Rock You. The people in the crowd are singing. The Prince or whoever was in the booth, they're singing We Will Rock You. Wait a minute. How did they even know what this song is?
Well, I mean, look, that's what I'm saying. Like
this is based on a story by Geoffrey Chaucer. He wrote this story that they adapted into this movie. So, Brian Hagelin, what are you doing as a director? This doesn't make sense.
Well, to me, that's what I kind of love about it, is that it's not a period piece drama that you would see from, like, if this was done in a more serious way, I don't think this movie would quite have the charm that it does. I think what the modern day songs utilize and what the modern kind of sports movie structure does to it makes it kind of timeless, makes it less stuffy, doesn't really confine it into a box that I think like you would have to have with a period drama. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, was that I think that the reason why it ultimately works, even though I find it a little like, I find the song choices to be really obvious, but like you're just picking like the greatest hits you could have picked for this movie. But it's like, because you're picking modern films, you're making the film, though it's about the past, seem like it could be today, because the story is a sports movie. It's a romance film. It's fairy tales are always readapted for modern times. Things like Cinderella, things like that. Like it's always love stories can be readapted to modern day all the time. And that's essentially what I think they're doing, bridging the gap with the music between now and then.
Well, I think it's more of, I agree with you. I think they wanted to contextualize a medieval story for a modern audience, so young people would want to go see this movie, because otherwise it would be a stuffy period piece set in medieval times about jousting. It's like, do you think young people wants to see a movie about jousting? And yeah, the comedy aspects and stuff, like Alan Tudyk, Mark Addy, what's his name? Paul Bettany. You first see Paul Bettany. He's walking out naked. Because he lost a bet, so he lost all his clothes. He literally lost all his clothes, and he plays Geoffrey Chaucer, the writer. And like people are like, who's Geoffrey Chaucer? We know Geoffrey, but back then they don't know who Geoffrey Chaucer is. But he adds a nice element to the story, and their band of goofball, I call them goofy characters, is funny. But I'll tell you what, is an actor that I've come to like over the years, for the last 25 whatever years, because I saw him first. I remember him like really seriously because he was a villain on CSI Miami, and that's Rufus Sewell. I've been following this guy for years, and he has played more villains than I can count. He just has that like. That
resting bitch face. Like
he's just so good at playing a villain. And I watched him on CSI Miami, and when he plays like a detective on a PBS detective show, you're like, I don't see him as the good guy. I'm so used to seeing him as the bad guy, But I love Rufus Sewell as the bad guy here. And of course he's dressed all in black. The bad guy's got the black knight, the black armor and stuff like that. And it really is a kind of by the numbers sports movie set in medieval times.
And the thing is, we're saying all this stuff, and that's not like my only somewhat negative is more about like feeling like I don't know that the movie, I don't know if I ever felt like the movie really had a proper identity. I don't know. It's like it didn't maybe sometimes take it too far enough. If it wanted to be a satire or spoof movie, it always felt like it was like underdoing it. except for like
it walks that fine line. It walks such a fine line between, like, are we satirizing kind of the jousting medieval Renaissance fear, or is this a love letter to it in a modern context, like Dan said?
Yeah.
And I was watching the movie, and this also kind of playing with the fairy tale side of it all. The romance that's in it is incredibly fairy tale esque. Like it's something you would read in like a poet, like poetry and stuff like that, when they're exchanging letters back and forth. The two characters of, you know, William and Jocelyn, and they're writing each other back and forth, and you see them having these scenes of trying to figure out what to say back and forth. It's incredibly romantic in a, you know, hopeless romantic type of way, which has always captured me. I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic at heart, so those scenes were hit very much to home. As someone who has dabbled in romantic poetry writing, I'm like, this looks very, very similar to what I've done before.
Well, you get the whole point, Andrew, is where William Chaucer's writing all this stuff to Jocelyn for him because he can't say what he wants to say. Yeah. Where have we seen that before? You know, we've seen that before with Cyrano de Bergerac, you know, and so it's just taking bits and pieces from so many different places, but I don't know if all that works, you know, and I understand this is something that you love and you have an affinity for this movie. I think on the outside looking in, looking at this movie again recently, I just don't know of all these things. Are there things that work? Sure. Are there more things that don't work? I don't know. I mean, it's, you know, for me,
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Ultimately, what I'd like to do here, though, is get a little bit more deeper into why Andrew really, truly loves this movie to an obsessed level to see if it can change our mind. We got a kind of a good overview at the beginning, but I'd like to get deeper. Like you somewhat touched on like some of the themes of the themes that it covers. Like, so what really makes you feel like you're obsessed with this movie? Like on a thematic level, like what because that's honestly, I feel like for most of us is where the obsession has to lie. It can't lie in just like, oh, it's so entertaining. Like I think that we had, like, you know, Dan said with High Noon, like I said, Skull Rock, there's always something that really connects us on a personal level that makes us obsessed with the film. So what is that for you?
Yeah, so at the kind of like the sentimental core of the movie, there is this idea that, you know, they say this quote many times, the idea that someone can change their stars in life. Someone can change from nothing to something. You know, specifically in the hardened case of, you know, medieval Europe, where if you're born poor, you're probably going to stay poor. If you're born wealthy, that's kind of the only way you could be wealthy. You know, the difference between royalty and the poor class, royalty and the working class was very staunch. Like you couldn't separate those things. You couldn't all of a sudden typically you couldn't all of a sudden go from non-royalty to royalty. That's why, like, you know, this plays with historical fact and all that kind of stuff in the movie. But at the core of this, we get these flashback scenes of Will as a young kid with his father. We don't really know what happened to his mother. We can assume she probably died from some type of curable disease that would be cured today. We could assume so. Could have been a plague, could have been a cold. We don't really know. So you've got this young kid going from, you know, a single parent who obviously doesn't have the ability to take care of him and has to give him up. And now he has to grow up without a family, without a father, having this surrogate family in these side characters. I find to be incredibly sentimental. Like, I feel like the Mark Addy character is such like a brother to Will. And you can feel that. And then that kind of relates into real life, how you can adopt people as your surrogate family members, how real life that can be, which I think was incredibly sentimental. And then, of course, you know, spoiling the movie, there is a legitimate family reunion that goes on, and it's played in that general, you know, sense of, you know, that genuine sense of like plugging out your heartstrings as a viewer. But I feel like it works. It's so genuine and so lovely, and plays into that hero's journey, that hero's fairy tale. It's tough to explain. I mean, because I've always had an inferiority complex. I've always felt less than. So movies that have, kind of traversed people who've gone from like nothingness and feeling like nothing. Going from literally the beginning of the movie where like they've got nothing. They don't even have anything to eat, no food, no nothing. Their night that they're going with dies to go all the way up to the brilliance and the top of something. It's a story that I've always kind of gravitated towards because in a way, I think we're all striving for that type of sense of accomplishment, that type of sense of changing one's lot in life. Yeah, and this movie, I think, does it so genuinely well. Like I said, going back to Heath Ledger being able to pull that off, and not for it to come off as cheesy and schmaltzy, if you will. I feel like it was, incredibly authentic. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I guess I'm trying to be like putting myself in the William character's place.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they call that a parasocial relationship with a character, I think that's the phrase people use nowadays. But yeah, that's kind of what really reminisced. And plus, I was 14 years old at the time, incredibly impressionable, incredibly naive about the world and life. I've always been incredibly also sentimental about those things, like life journeys and time and stuff like that. As we all know here. So yeah, I don't know. I always like this movie and these types of movies too.
Yeah, you have a similar, at least with your first movies, similar to Dan, underdog stories or something that you are attracted to.
Well, no, I mean this movie. No, I understand where you're coming from now, Andrew. That father-son kind of story where he was trying to show his father that he could amount to something and he could be somebody, even though his father was blind. By the end of the movie, for whatever reason, they just chose to make his father blind at the end of the movie, near the end of the movie, so he couldn't really see what his son was doing. I thought that was kind of odd.
I think the thing with the son, I think with him and his dad, I don't think that it was like a relationship where he felt like he needed to prove himself to his father. It was more that he did better, that he could be better than him more than anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, like not to be poor and to be like not being able to take care of oneself, barely.
Yeah, there's that old adage that, parents want their children to
do
be better than them, to do better than them.
I think it's just, he set him up. He basically said, look, I can't take care of you anymore. I can't do anything to help you succeed in life. So go off with this knight and have a better life. And not necessarily that he needed to prove himself, is that he just needed to find a way to have a life. And that, to be able to come back to him, is what's sweet about it.
Yeah,
he was able to find him again.
The idea of, like coming home, just follow your feet, I think is incredibly poetic.
What he said to him before he left. Yeah.
And also I like, there's where they're crossing over back to England and everybody's saying like, how long has it been since you've been back to the homeland, if you will? And everybody's like, 5 years, 3 years, and Will's like 12 years. And that's when you get the flashback of when he was a kid, because the last time he was there was when he was with his father. I mean, literally the first place he kind of goes when he goes back there is to his old neighborhood. You know what I mean? And you don't see it, but you can kind of feel it. You know what I mean? With Heath Ledger, you could feel some things going on here that weren't really on the screen when he's slowly trotting on the horse through his old neighborhood, and it's raining, it's downtrodden, and it's gray and it's dark and it's bleak. And you could feel like there's probably a rush of memories coming back to him of being a kid. Like he even talks to a little kid who lives in that neighborhood. So who knows what it's like to live in like that squalor, if you will. And the fact that he's made it out of there, the fact that the father kind of set him up to that, and kind of what Dan was saying is, even though the father can't literally see him, he can feel it. When they have that reunion and they embrace, you can feel that the father knows that his son is much better off now.
I feel like there's a fake out here. Like the movie's trying to give you a fake out of this sentimental story and all this stuff. But what happens is he goes back to his old house and that costs him everything that he did, because he was fooling everybody all along. He was trying to pretend that he was somebody else that he wasn't. And in reality, a lot of the times you can't really do that. you can't really pretend you're, you can't
Well, I mean,
get
I think
out
that,
of what you are.
I
You
think
are
that's,
who
I think
you
that's
are.
the journey. That's the movie.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
also think
you're not
I
trying
also
to
think
play.
that's the point.
I look at it like losing. Sometimes you lose in life. Sometimes people are meant to have a bad deal. Not everybody is meant to have a winning hand, and that's where this quote comes in right here. You have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting. You don't always win. This movie's trying to give you a happy ending, but I feel like not giving the viewer a happy ending would have been a better, because there's a lot of losing teams out there. There's a lot of people
Well,
that don't
I
have
think
a
if we
great
were,
life.
I think if this movie was made by, had a different purpose, if it was like a drama, maybe.
If it was
If this
something,
was Braveheart, then yeah, he dies at the
yeah,
end. But
if
but
it was
this
a
mo-
movie, you would
yeah,
have to radically change the whole tone of the movie from beginning to
yeah,
end to get to that point.
All
Like
right.
you wouldn't be able to have like AC/DC playing in a movie where there's a bad ending. It doesn't
yeah.
seem
You sound like you
right.
just want to change this whole movie.
That would be a good
No,
mutation,
I
though.
just feel like it's doing a fake out for the audience.
I don't think so. I don't think it's faking
I think
it
it
out.
was setting us up for that type of happy ending. Because if
I think I
Yeah.
think like we talking about, it's a journey. So he knows, as somebody that's not of nobility, he can't do this competition, so he has to pretend to be in it. He doesn't care about being a noble. He just wants to be able to participate and make money. And as he goes through it, of course, he gets kind of like sucked into the world more, falls in love with the noble girl, and then when it comes to a point where he can't fake it anymore, he gets caught, and then he gets saved by somebody that is noble, that actually has integrity, which is another.
What is fascinating about that whole thing, I mean, obviously, like foreshadowing and stuff like that. This was kind of my first movie where I was thinking of like things like foreshadowing and writing and stuff. Early on in the movie, he's doing the jousting, and then the Prince of Wales, who's like the heir to the throne, is disguising himself, pretending to be lesser in order to participate in the jousting tournaments and stuff, while William is pretending to be more than what he is to participate in the jousting tournament. And in doing and because Will is doing that and is kind of doing the same thing, he recognizes that in the prince, and it ends up saving him in the end. And there's this old adage, this thing that I've kind of been noticing throughout my whole life, is that it never, sometimes being a good person can pay off eventually. Being nice to somebody one day can eventually end up paying off later on. Because that happens in real life, you know what I mean? And it happened in this movie, which I thought was fascinating. I like that little writing thing they did in there with that little
No, I think
foreshadowing.
that was the most interesting. That was the most interesting situation that happened in the movie for me. The father stuff was sentimental and nice, and it added a little bit of weight. I don't think it's fleshed out nearly enough to be that important to the movie, because I think ultimately all the other stuff takes over the movie. The fun satire stuff, that stuff takes over most of the movie.
I'll say Paul Bettany, this was my first real like encounter with Paul Bettany. He's on fire in this movie.
He is awesome.
He's a scene stealer.
Him and Alan Tudyk going back and forth is the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, the way he just he's like the best hype man I've ever seen in a movie. He is like the guy you want cheering you on for every little thing you do in life is Paul Bettany in this movie. And because he's an author, because he's like an intellectual on a literary level, he's just coming up with words and phrases that people have no idea what he's saying, but it sounds great because he can sell it. It's so good.
And he's an example of the other side of society that he's being nice to. That Heath Ledger's showing mercy to. He did it with the person he knew as a prince, and then gave him, and then with Paul Bettany, he's a gambler. He keeps getting into gambling debt, and instead of just letting these guys kill him, basically, he decides to save them. And
he shows mercy when typically like people of royalty do not. Like they look down at people. That's another thing that this movie's kind of commenting on is the difference in social classes during the medieval times, but even now you see the difference in social classes. There is a sense of, aristocratic people to look down at the people below them in the hierarchy of things. So this movie's playing on that level. Excuse me again.
My biggest thing was just the clashes with the necessity to have all the spoofy stuff. I think it's fun, but I don't know that the balance is there with all the actual other stuff it tried to do in the film. I think it, like you said, it walks a fine line. I think it might walk the line a little bit in the wrong direction sometimes, but it is a fun watch. It's still a fun movie. Dan hates this movie. I can tell. He just.
No, I don't hate this movie. No, I don't hate this movie. I definitely don't hate this.
He wants to change the movie.
Where are you on the philometer?
I respect this movie. I just don't feel like it's giving people the proper message. I think that it's faking people out. I'll stand here and I'll be serious about this. This is a sports movie that's doing a fake out. It's making someone see the audience think that this guy is an underdog. He's got these problems and this and that, and he's overcoming these odds and all this. But what it should be telling is, hey, sometimes good things don't happen to people. You lose in life, and you have been dealt a bad hand in life, and that's how life is, and that's truly what life is all about. This movie is trying to fake that by having this happy ending. He ends up with the girl and he gets released and turned into a knight by the prince and all this stuff. Look, I like James Purefoy too. I thought he was great in it, in a little role. I just, the music, the soundtrack to me was the best part of the movie. And that was kind of like goofy because why are those people singing "We Will Rock You"?
I mean, I think that stuff's fun. It's just, I think my only issues with the movie really is just, about the balance between trying to tell a sincere story and trying to tell a farce is like sometimes
because there are huge swings.
It's
of
huge
tone.
things. Yeah.
Like you will go from a scene of like jousting and like music montage to like an intimate romantic scene between Heath Ledger and Shannon Salsaman. I couldn't remember the actress's name, but you'll go through like massive swings. Like it'll be kind of like tonal whiplash, if you will. And it's not that the scenes are bad; they're just they're just juxtaposed to one another.
Yeah. It's one of them things where like I'm interested by the film more than I'm obsessed with it. That's why I can't go to obsessed. Like I'm more fascinated by how this film turned out as good as it did. Like
a lot of it is because the cast really carries.
Yeah, the cast really carries. That's why I said like the cast around Heath Ledger really carries the movie. If they didn't pull off the comedy the way they did, I don't think this movie would have worked at all.
Yeah, it was it's kind of a happy accident.
Was a good villain. Rufus Sewell was a really good villain.
Underrated, like you were saying, Dan, earlier, underrated kind of career character actor who, like also Steven said, he's got that evil presence down pat. Like he looks like an evil guy. Probably a nice guy in real life, but
certain guys that just play good villains, and Rufus Sewell is just one of them guys that plays a great villain. When he played that detective on PBS, that series of detective movies, where he was like an Italian detective or some kind of, I'm like, I don't see him as a good guy because I always see him as a bad guy, and he's so good as a bad guy, especially on CSI Miami. I loved him as the villain on that.
He was also in that Amazon series, The Man in the High Castle.
Yeah. And he played a Nazi.
He played a Nazi, and it's it was he played it convincingly well.
Yeah,
but he's always played those types of roles because I think this was the first time I was aware of him. Was probably in this movie, and then I kept seeing him pop up in things after that. I'm trying to see if there was anything else, but yeah, I'm just looking at it. He's got a long filmography on IMDb. If anybody wants to go take a look. Oh, he was in Dark City. That's another one where he would play a protagonist, but still like a stern protagonist. Like he's very stoic. that face looks like a stone.
Yeah. But it's So I think I slightly go forward on the meter a little bit to solid good stuff for me.
I'm just gonna stick with respect. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I respect that.
Obviously, I'm on obsessed enough to own it twice over on Blu-ray and 4K. So obviously, I'm hooked.
See, I had the movie on DVD, and I think I gave a bunch of my DVDs to my parents, knowing that some of them I would probably just get around to rebuying, and I don't own it anymore. But I did have it on DVD. I just need to buy the Blu-ray, but I would definitely own it for sure.
I had to watch it on Tubi.
Yeah, it's on Tubi. So
I was looking at I was like, I don't think I own a copy. I don't own a copy on Fandango at home, or nowhere. So I was like, well, I guess I'm watching.
I think this is a prime for like an Arrow video release. Like I feel like Arrow.
Yeah, I mean, this just came out like last month, I think, like late May.
I might have to get that.
And like this Blu-ray had been out since 2006, so this was around forever.
Yeah.
This was I saw this so many times in so many bargain bins over the years, and it was always the same disc. So it needed something like a proper remaster and restoration, which it did eventually get. I'm surprised they didn't capitalize on that earlier, because the movie, like I said, it's now 24 years old, so it's been around for a while. So it's probably hit a few generations of people. Like I said, I watched it when I was a teenager. Probably the next generation seen it now. I mean, Heath Ledger's, of course, his passing definitely gets people to go back and rewatch a lot of his films. So yeah, it's always a movie that's stuck with me over the years.
Were there some good special features on it? Have you watched the discs?
I didn't watch the special features yet, but there's they're deleted an extended scene. There's actually an extended cut of the movie that's an extra 10 minutes long. That's been around, I think, for a while too. So yeah, I'm curious what scenes they added in that would have like fleshed it out even more. That's something that I'm more fascinated about than anything.
Okay. Well, I'm surprised you haven't watched it. Since you're so obsessed with the movie.
Yeah, true.
Jesus.
True. I think I'm obsessed with the theatrical cut.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, well, this guy's fat. He loves the movie. You think you would have watched the special features by now?
You would think so.
You got a lot of watching to do. We know you got a lot of watching to do. So, it was fun to revisit it for me. It'd been a minute. My wife likes the movie a lot too. So I know I've caught her a couple times over the years, like watching this late at night before I go to bed. So, but I hadn't watched it maybe in about a couple years or something. And I was like, this is really fun. It is all over the fucking place. Like the movie, like it goes on a journey with its comedy and with its self-referential behavior, but like it's fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a little ace in the hole here that I thought would have pushed you. I didn't take it out. Brian Helgeland wrote the screenplay for LA Confidential.
Yeah,
it's cool and everything, but
yeah, but he's been really.
He's more of a writer than he is.
One of the most hit and miss screenwriters, directors. If you look at his filmography, he doesn't have a lot of big hits on his.
More so writing than directing.
Yeah.
Most definitely. But I just thought it was fascinating that, this was kind of a movie that he did after, coincidentally working with Mel Gibson on, was it Payback? Something like that? Yeah, Payback. And then he did A Knight's Tale right after. And then he did the movie The Order, which was Heath Ledger's follow-up film. So they worked together again.
He was doing so well until we got to The Order.
Yeah, until we got to The Order, a movie no one ever talks about.
Because it's The Order.
Yeah, but
it's not that great.
Yeah,
I'm thinking The Order. I remember the Jude Law and Nicholas Hoult movie from last year, which I loved. I don't remember another movie called The Order. So
I remember it somewhat back in the day.
I remember seeing the trailer for it.
Yeah.
It's I think it's almost as if Heath Ledger was playing like a John Constantine type character, or he was like hunting demons or something.
Oh,
that's what it is. Yeah, it came out in 2003. If I remember.
Wow. I don't even remember it. I'll be honest. I never even heard of it.
Yeah,
that's so weird.
I think I've seen it, and I don't remember thinking it was too great. But But yeah, that is Andrew's pick this week, A Knight's Tale. He is obsessed with it. I am thinking it's good stuff, and Dan is sticking on I respect it. So you get a little bit of the spectrum tonight on opinions, but next week it is
2
back
weeks.
to Dan, or next episode in 2 weeks. It's Dan, back to Dan. He gets to pick the next one. So what are you going for?
I'm going to go with a movie that really had a huge impact on me as a film cinephile and as a movie fan. I saw it when I was 7 years old, and it's E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Good pick.
Yeah, this is that's gonna be a love fest of an episode right there. I don't think we're gonna have many. I don't. If anybody's under good stuff, it would surprise me.
I'm assuming we're gonna go with the original cut, the one that doesn't substitute like walkie
That
talkies or
doesn't
whatever.
exist, Andrew.
It doesn't.
The one that takes away the guns.
Yeah.
That don't
For what,
exist.
walkie talkies, isn't
It
it?
doesn't exist. That's an urban legend.
I saw that in theaters. Well, not in theaters, in a drive-in theater.
Yeah,
Still counts.
yeah. That doesn't count. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't want to show our hands, but I don't think
Right.
anybody's gonna. Yeah, but that'll be a good discussion, and we'll look forward to that. But until then, of course, please subscribe to the Chasing Labels channel. This coming up week, we got Andrew back at Chasing Labels, going over recent announcements. So you got a bunch of, I think, Vinegar Syndrome stuff to talk about,
Yep.
and yeah.
Vinegar Syndrome, Warner Archive, whatever else drops between then and now. Off the top of my head, we will be talking about the Keep. Michael Mann's The Keep's getting another 4K release. That's going to be interesting. And then we have our Sean Baker interview is up on the channel right now, which we just did this past week. The recently Academy Award winning director, filmmaker, and fellow movie collector, big time movie collector. We got to talk with him about his releases of Anora and Prince of Broadway from Criterion, which was awesome. Of course, we will be doing Unwatched Pile before the end of the month.
The last Monday of the month, Unwatched Pile will be back.
Gotcha.
So
that's about it.
I think we're about. That's it for the. There might be something else that pops out, but I don't know. That seems to be about the rest of the month. So. But thank you, everybody, for joining us down this memory lane. And hey, go into your dreams and watch more movies. I'll come up with something.
I was saying,
Come on, let's go. Give the people what they want here.
I'll give them something. Here we go.